With Disney acquiring the rights to some of the most iconic and beloved science fiction franchises in recent memory from 20th Century Fox, one of them having surpassed expectations and has viewers curious as to what lies ahead, another being an artless sequel that represents the antithesis of blockbuster movie making that just so happened to generate $2 billion, and another that, let's just say, fans were not happy in any way with the first season. To put it delicately, the success of these franchises is practically a mixed bag. And alongside these properties is Predator, a franchise that, under Disney's leadership, has fared decently, though they did so without breaking any new ground. Long before the House of Mouse came into the picture, the Predator franchise was like the equivalent of a roller coaster ride. Picture this. At the very top of the chain lift is the original, a stone cold classic that hybridized testosterone-infused and bicep-pumping action, with elements of horror of an extraterrestrial, high-tech tribal warrior killing its victims for sport one by one. Lest we forget the charismatic leads of Carl Weathers and Arnold Schwarzenegger, with 80s machismo and extremely quotable yet pretty cheesy dialogue. Then came Predator 2 in 1990, and then the cards plummet a very steep slope. You're thinking to yourself, okay, Predator 2 was a critical and financial disappointment, and it basically put the entire franchise on a 14-year-long hiatus. Surely the ride's gonna get better, right? Yeah, no. After the hiatus was over, then came the canonized face-off movies, Alien vs. Predator and the abomination that is Alien vs. Predator Requiem. One of two movies that would end up torching the Strauss brothers' careers. The ride sinks down into a tunnel until there is nothing but darkness. Suddenly, you rise up and you get to see daylight in the form of predators, which was effectively a passable carbon copy of the original Predator, except minus the good characters and plus the member berries. But then you notice that up ahead, the tracks are broken, and you're about to meet certain doom with Shane Black's sequel, The Predator. An abhorrent embarrassment to the franchise that recontextualized everything that we knew about the Predators themselves. But then, miraculously, Dan Trachtenberg, who recently made 10 Cloverfield Lane, pops his magic wand and fixed the tracks with the very suitable and above average Prey. Being a success on streaming services during the Voldemort virus, the movie told a fairly moderate story of a young girl trying to prove herself to the clan as a warrior. But in the case of Predator Badlands, if we were to still keep up with this roller coaster analogy, it's basically the ride pulling the brakes and just stopping dead in its tracks. As you're still on the ride, you complain to yourself, what happened? Why did the ride stop? You had everything going for you. You have the first movie in which a Yautja, or a predator, is the main character of the movie. He's partnering with a Weyland-Yutani synthetic that is played by a promising young actress. You have a dangerous, sprawling alien world while also bridging the gap between both the Alien and Predator franchises since the early 2000s. Well, even despite all of that, what we're stuck with is ultimately a subpar, generic, zero-risk-taking Disney-fied space adventure with an identity crisis. But I guess it's better than AVP Requiem and Shane Black's The Predator. So there's that, Predator Badlands. Here's your gold star. For the story that we have in Badlands, we travel with our main character, a young Yautja warrior named Dek, albeit the runt of his tribe. He is set to complete his rite of passage by becoming one with the Yautja. All he has to do is kill a very formidable and powerful creature and return its head as a trophy. Dek's desired target? The unkillable and gigantic Kalisk. But before he can embark on his quest, his father arrives and orders the son to execute Dek. Mainly because the tribe cannot afford having any weak warriors, so Dek's gotta go. Predictably, in movie fashion, the brother sacrifices himself to protect Dek and send him to his desired destination. Crash landing and marooned on the planet Gina, he comes across dangerous terrain, savage creatures, and by some cosmic coincidence, a bisected Weyland-Yutani synth named Thea. After rescuing him from a space vulture, which I have no idea how she was able to do that. I understand that she escaped by using Dek's blade and all, but I seriously have no earthly clue how she was able to get there so quickly when she is separated from her torso. You probably think it's because of her acrobatic synth abilities, but when you see her in several instances where she is standing on her hands, she never proceeds to do anything like that for the rest of the movie. I have no freaking clue. She states to Deck that before she was ever mangled on the Space Vulture's nest, she was also on the hunt for the Callisk along with her sister Tessa and her Weyland-Yutani synthetics. What's that you say? That's pretty lucky? Well, it is. With the details acquired, both Deck and Thea have to work together to find the Callisk so that way he can avenge his brother and she can reunite with her sister. In the case of the story, for the first act, let's say around the 15-20 minute mark, you are, for the most part, on this movie's side. You understand Deck's motivation to avenge his brother and to strike retribution against his father. Alright, that's all well and good. However, once that mark is over, the entire rest of the script is floating atop a layer of life buoys that are called conveniences. Not the kind of authentic and acceptable coincidences that kick off the story, put our character into instant peril, or create opportunities for the characters to respond to them and grow their character. They're the kind of coincidences that rescue our protagonist from certain doom, solve a predicament in the nick of time, or worse yet, the script contrives our protagonist and the enemies to become so stupid in order to raise the stakes or push the plot. Of many examples, we witness Deck being attacked by serpentine flora and fauna, and he struggles to ward off against him to the point of him almost losing all of his gear, but he is able to strategize in a way that makes him escape. Alright, gotcha. But once he enters into a field full of exploding paralysis plants, for some bizarre reason, we see him evade and duck, even going prone in certain instances, all thanks to Thea's advice, might I add. But then, the story decides now is the time to have our character be a total dolt and stand there for an exceptionally long period of time until the plant explodes and the dart hits his neck and it becomes paralyzed. In the plot summary that I spilled to you not too long ago, one of the biggest coincidences of the entire story is when Deck encounters Thea for the very first time. What are the intergalactic odds that Thea just so happens to be on the same exact mission as Deck to find the Callisk and have highly valuable information that he needs to be aware of when encountering the beast or other life forms like it? Because as we discover later on in the movie, the Callisk has regenerative properties. It is literally unkillable. Had Deck just went around the exploding paralysis plants and ignored Thea, or even just taken an alternative direction, he would have died and the movie would be over. That's the thing with Deck. I mean, despite Demetrius Kalamantagi's adequate performance as a grieving yet perseverant fighter, a lot of his actions throughout the movie is either because of his skills as a hunter and him having to adapt with the environment surrounding him, or because the plot requires him to be incompetent, or because he gets away with sheer luck and with no actual skill. It is incredibly inconsistent. And speaking of Thea, no disrespect to Miss Fanning whatsoever, she's annoying as hell. It's got nothing to do with Elle Fanning as an actress herself, because here, she does a very good job with the material provided for her. Not only portraying the cold and calculating twin cyborg Tessa, but also a very ditzy, bubbly, and intelligent synthetic made by Weyland-Yutani that the writers hoped the audience would find endearing. I'm telling you, once she begins the road trip with Deck to travel across the wilderness, and she constantly has to comment and ask questions about everything going on as they walk, you're asking yourself, she's gonna talk like that for the rest of the movie, huh? Yep, she is. Here's one thing that I also need to mention about Thea. The reason why she has a very quirky and bubbly personality is because, according to this movie, Weyland-Yutani programmed to both her and her sister Tessa heightened sensitivity, because having feelings will have them better understand and study the planet's life forms. Why would they do that? Why would they ever do that? Isn't Weyland-Yutani's priority for doing research on extraterrestrials fulfilling profit goals and maintaining company control? Wouldn't giving a synth heightened sensitivity and emotions lead to them having moral rationalization, seeing creatures as misunderstandings rather than specimens? What if this leads to them disobeying direct orders from the company? Oh wait, that's what happens in the movie, huh? There you go. When you boil right down to it, it is basically the exact same problem that Tron Ares had. I can't think of a single reason as to why the directors and scriptwriters thought that it would make sense for Weyland-Yutani to give an artificial person a synthetic, heightened sensitivity other than to plop a lively, colorful character into the movie and to have the movie thread the needle in with a theme and message that you cannot do things alone and that friendship is super important. It's like the director was thinking to himself, okay, how do I put in a very jolly character into my script while putting in the theme of friendship? How about this? Let's give the synthetic emotions. But Dan, doesn't that contradict the Alien canon? Well, yes. But I'm gonna do it anyway. There's also another secondary character that the movie wants to insert, if you want to call it that. It's a little creature that Thea names Bud. I don't really have a whole lot to say about Bud, and it's mainly because there's nothing else to say about Bud. All Bud is a plot contrivance that helps our heroes avoid dangers, especially during a high-stakes alien encounter, and acts as comedy relief just for the sake of making an audience laugh, even if it breaks the tone for a science fiction action-adventure film that takes itself marginally seriously. But Luke, I hear you inquiring, do we at least get some awesome action set pieces? After all, it is a Predator film. Well, I have to say, yes, there are some cool action scenes here and there, mainly from a choreography perspective. Scenes of close-quarter combat, such as the Predators fighting each other using their laser swords, makes you buy the fact that they are highly trained, exceptionally talented warriors. However, there's a caveat. Unlike all of the Predator movies that came before this one, with its bloody and gory moments of brutality, this movie right here is PG-13. Sure, there are instances of CG animals being bisected and cut in half with purple blood oozing out of their bodies, or synths being melted down by acid and being destroyed by another opponent. There is a point in this movie where it involves graphic beheadings that it makes you think, why wasn't this movie rated R? But because of the fact that the movie needed to play itself safe in order to connect to a wider audience, the movie has to fade its dismemberments or beheadings in order to justify its rating. Let's see what else I can say for positives. Aside from the acting and the action sequences, occasionally, I can argue that the alien world of Guinea is visually marvelous to look at. The terrain and wildlife is created, and it's far different from any extraterrestrial life forms and animals that we've seen before. Plus, Sarah Schachner, who's also credited for doing scores for, of course, Prey, but also video games including Assassin's Creed and Call of Duty. She delivers a very suitable and otherworldly soundtrack along with Benjamin Wallfish, with a mixture of alien sound effects and throat singing that feel remarkably appropriate for this franchise. Unfortunately, for what promising elements are to be had in Predator Badlands, you then get to the last act of the movie. Aside from the fact that I appreciate Deck using the environment to his advantage by crafting a naturalistic version of the Predator armor, the entire climatic stealth mission crossed with the film's inevitable boss fight. It's just an endless succession of the main villain of the movie, Tessa, and her evil Weyland-Yutani synths being so intergalactically stupid that it makes you wonder if this is the best that Weyland-Yutani can do. These are the best robots that have been installed by his company. During a stealth segment in the movie, when Deck and Bud are killing synths left and right as they scream bloody murder and cause so much noise, nobody sounds the alarm, nobody calls for backup. When the film finally decides to have our lovely protagonists reunite with one another, every single soldier gets sent to one area in one formation, only to get blown apart altogether in Deck's trap, because battle strategies be damned. Meanwhile, as our other two side characters are going into the ship and trying to free the precious cargo, there's only one security guard responsible for protecting said precious cargo, because security measures be damned. Isn't it fascinating how a franchise has evolved from an industry joke about Rocky Balboa fighting an alien has reached to this point? All through a roller coaster analogy, might I add. Predator Badlands isn't on par quality-wise with the likes of Alien vs. Predator Requiem or Shane Black's The Predator, but as an installment to Disney's new Predator franchise, it is an objectively and deeply flawed movie that just forgot what made Predator so interesting in the first place. What we have instead is basically the Predator equivalent of a Disney Plus Star Wars show, tone deaf with weak characterization and bungled script writing. My advice, stick to the original. It's an action classic that will turn you into a goddamn sexual Tyrannosaurus, just like me. My name is Luke Nukem, and you, my friends, have been blown away.